Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing a top 10. Topic of this top 10? Top 10 ridiculous lies of Hulk Hogan. And I can't even get through saying that without cracking a smile and laughing. The reason I'm doing this, he just added one to our list, which you'll hear here in a minute. And it's one of those things, and this is lighthearted. I'm not picking on Hulk Hogan. I'm not picking on his political beliefs. I'm not picking on anything here. I'm not a huge Hulk Hogan fan. I respect the heck out of what he's done for pro wrestling. And that's where I kind of think this is funny. If Hulk Hogan just told the truth about Hulk Hogan's career, he has one of the maybe 4 or 5 best careers in the history of wrestling. He's got one of the most impressive stories ever that you could tell as a human being. He has no reason to pump himself up. He's not your cousin Dave that's done nothing and sits in his basement playing Minecraft all day. He's Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He was there for the NWO. He was there for Hulkamania. He is Hulkamania. He's been in a Rocky movie. He's been everywhere. He's one of the names that's synonymous with pro wrestling. So he doesn't have to tell these lies, but he does. So this is all going to be looked at in a joking, in a fun manner. Again, I'm not doing this to bash Hulk Hogan. I just think it's something that would be fun and funny to do. So with that being said, we're going to start off at number 10. Hulk Hogan was scouted by the Yankees and the Reds as a pitcher coming out of high school. Now, we do know that Hulk Hogan played baseball in high school, and I'm sure that he was probably one of the best players on his team, if not the best player on his team. There is no proof anywhere that this is a true fact. It might actually be, as a matter of fact. It's hard to say unless you speak to a scout on either one of those teams back in the 70s. I would highly doubt that either of them had a passing interest. If they did, with someone of Hogan's size, I think he would have been somebody that got signed on to a contract and then played in the minor leagues. What I think he might be confusing, might be co-opting here, is a guy we see right here and who's been there for a little while. And that's Randy Macho Man Savage. Randy Savage was actually in the farm system for the Reds, and I do believe he was recruited by the Yankees as well. Randy Savage was a great pitcher coming out of high school and probably should have made the major leagues if he didn't have an elbow injury. I think it was an elbow injury. He had some sort of injury. Don't quote me on the fact that it was an elbow. If I'm wrong, just put it in the comments. But anyway, I think he's taking Savage's actual history and co-opted it for himself. But going from that, our number 9. The Undertaker hurt his neck at Survivor Series 1991. If you've watched The Undertaker's podcast, which I have, and it's still uncomfortable for me to see The Undertaker as Mark. I'm still one of those people that wishes he never broke kayfabe. However, I can't not listen to the historic stories that come out of the man's mouth. I mean, we have The Undertaker. He's one of the biggest legends in wrestling history. He's talked about this several times on his podcast, how Hogan said he hurt his neck, and he feels like Hogan was trying to railroad him to get him in trouble. They've shown the video, and it's one of the safest tombstones you'll ever see. Hogan is like this far away from the mat. And when he brought that up to Hogan, Hogan then said, "Yeah, but you squeezed me too hard, brother." I don't know. It's so silly, and one of those things that you kind of always heard as a rumor that he politicked against guys that he thought might take his spot. I could see that with The Undertaker, because Undertaker did eventually get to that top spot. Just another one of those, I don't know why he would even say it. Now go from that, our number 8. Hulk Hogan was approached and offered the role that Mickey Rourke played in The Wrestler of Randy the Ram. While I think that some of Hulk Hogan's career was used in The Wrestler, specifically the Ram and the Ayatollah, going with Hogan and the Sheik kind of, there is zero evidence that Hulk Hogan was considered for any role in this movie. And there's even evidence that he was never approached. Darren Aronofsky, the director of the movie, has said on several occasions that Hulk Hogan was never thought of for this movie, that he was never considered. I could see where they took some of his story as a backstory for Randy the Ram and maybe a little bit of a template. But when the director is Darren Aronofsky and he has so much control over his movies that he does, and he flat out says that Hogan wasn't considered, I tend to take him as a more credible source on this, so I don't think he was ever considered for the movie. Now going from that, our number 7. Hulk Hogan outdrank John Belushi after WrestleMania 2 at the after party. There is one gigantic, huge problem with this. WrestleMania 2 happened in 1986. John Belushi died in 1982. Now, is it possible that Hogan's getting his timeline wrong and maybe he outdrank Belushi at a party in the early 80s, late 70s while he was in the WWF? Very possible. Is it also possible that he's mistaking John and Jim Belushi, who was alive then and I believe is still alive now? Could he have maybe confuse the two brothers? Again, possible. The thing of it is, when you get the track record of Hulk Hogan of telling fibs, you kind of lose the benefit of the doubt. It's an interesting story, and it's one that sounds plausible, but like I said, maybe he just got the timelines wrong. Now our next one, for it to be plausible, you definitely have to stretch your imagination. That's our number 6. Elvis Presley was a Hulkamaniac. Now there's a couple problems with this. Hulk Hogan's debut as a pro wrestler was August 10th, 1977. Elvis Presley passed away on August 16th, 1977. Now, is it possible that Elvis seen Hogan's first match? Might he have been in Florida during that time? I don't really know where he was at that point. I'm not a super huge Elvis fan. I just looked up the dates of the passing and when Hogan started. There's a slim possibility. Could he have maybe seen Hogan in training, being that Elvis has been reported to be a wrestling fan, and while he was maybe touring in Florida or visiting Florida, maybe some of the wrestlers brought him into training and he said he liked that big guy being Hogan? Very much a possibility. However, I don't think it happened. It just doesn't fit in, especially when you know that Hulk Hogan didn't go to Memphis, which would have been the most likely place he's seen Hogan, until 1979. There have been rumors, and I think even Jerry Lawler has confirmed them, that Elvis would come down to the Mid-South Coliseum to watch them wrestle every now and then. But unless Elvis wasn't dead, or Elvis still isn't dead, which has long been a rumor, and that may be true. Maybe Hulk Hogan's telling us something we don't really know. Maybe he's confirming that Elvis is still alive. If you go with the accepted story that Elvis passed on the 16th of August, 1977, it's hard to believe this one. I'll go from that, our number 5. This one's a little bit sad, and I almost didn't put it on here because of that. But the absurdity of the story he told, I had to include it on. And that's the Make-A-Wish kid that passed away in SummerSlam 92 in Wembley Stadium that he got front row tickets to. He made a song on this on his album. He talked about, the smell of death, looking over and the kid wasn't there. There's a huge, huge glaring problem. And that's kind of the theme of everything here. When you fact-checked Hulk Hogan, there is glaring problems with a lot of his stories. Here's the one here. SummerSlam 92 is one of the most storied events in WWF history, WWE history. It's an event that I think 60 or 70,000 people went to. It's one of their most popular pay-per-views of all time. And while all that sounds great, guess who wasn't on the card? Hulk Hogan. And guess who wasn't there by many, many accounts? Hulk Hogan. So not only was he not there, so with that being true that he wasn't there for this event, how would he have met the kid? How would he have got him front row seats? And that's not saying, again, maybe he's confusing other stories. Hulk Hogan did a ton of Make-A-Wishes. Maybe there is a kid that he met early in the day that passed away later in the day, and he's confusing the storyline. Like I said, there's some of these, when you hold them up to scrutiny, they don't work, especially since Hulk Hogan wasn't on that card. Now going from that, our number 4. Probably one of the most prevalent and famous of the Hulk Hogan lies is the Hulk Hogan could have been the face of the George Foreman grill. Now, while I believe that the company that made the George Foreman grill may have wanted to put him in the commercials, may have wanted him to endorse the grill, may have wanted him to endorse something else. He got a mixer at the same time or around the same time, and he was on a ton of endorsements. And for the longest time, I thought this was plausible. Just recently, and I forget the guy's name, and I only watched it in passing on a YouTube thing that was debunking Hogan's lies. The person behind the Foreman grill, the person that actually made it behind the scenes and brought it to George Foreman, said that it was always going to be Foreman. Foreman was the first pick. Hulk Hogan wasn't considered. Again, much like we see with Darren Aronofsky with the wrestler. You got people that are on the other side of it saying, you were not in consideration, Hulkster. Again, it's one of those things like, I know he's had some failed products. He seems to be doing pretty decently with the Real American Beer. But come on, man. You don't have to lie about this. You could talk about the Old Spice commercials you did that were very successful. You could talk about the tons of other endorsements you had. I don't know why he seems to want to put himself in these places, but he does. Now going from that, our number 3. Hulk Hogan fought Pride fighters back in the 1970s. Again, here's another one of those that doesn't hold up to the scrutiny. Pride Fighting Championship as a company didn't exist till 1997. MMA as a sport wasn't really a thing to the early 90s. Now, could have Hulk Hogan been in shoot matches with wrestlers or with kickboxers or judo practitioners back in the 70s? Entirely possible. What's not possible is him wrestling a Pride fighter back then, unless he wrestled them as a kid or, just another one of those things that does not at all stand up to scrutiny. I don't know why he says these things, but he does. I'll go from that, our number 2. Another one of the more popular ones that everybody makes fun of. Hulk Hogan wrestled over 400 days in a year. Now, he mentioned there's an element of time travel where going to Japan, you gain or lose time, which seems to equal itself out when you come back from Japan. If you gain time, you lose the same amount of time when you come back. Unless he had Doc Brown with the DeLorean or Rick Sanchez there with him to take him through time, Hulk Hogan did not wrestle 400 days in his career. And I tried to look it up. The best that I could find, the most matches that Hogan wrestled in any one given year, I believe was somewhere around 230, which to me makes a lot of sense. If you think about it, he wrestled, that would have been roughly 4 to 5 times a week for the year. Now, we do know that wrestlers back in that day could wrestle 6-7 days a week. However, Hulk Hogan was of the stature that he did go to Japan. And going to Japan, he may have had a 2 or 3 day off during that time. He also got more off time than other wrestlers because he was Hulk Hogan. He didn't have to do necessarily all the TV shows. And even if he was on a TV show, a lot of times he just was cutting a promo. So the 230 sounds like a more viable answer. Heck, I would even give him 300 to be considerate. 300 is very possible. I know guys like Ric Flair have done over 300 wrestling days in a year. It's very possible Hogan hit that 300 mark at some point, and maybe it's just not as recorded. There is no way that he wrestled 400 days in a year, because there's only 365, unless you're in a leap year, then it's 366. But I digress. He could have had 400 matches, maybe. That would stretch it a lot, because that would mean at least 40 of the days or 34 of the days he would have had to do double shots, and he would have had to wrestle every single day at that point. I can't see that being a thing. But anyway, I digress. Now, before we get into our number 1, we do a thing here called the best of the rest. Basically, it was things that were thought of for the list but didn't quite make it. First up, we're going back to the world of baseball. And this one didn't make it because I thought the Yankees and Reds story was more compelling. This one is that he batted .714 in Little League in the Little League World Series. While he may have played in Little League, there's no record of him ever playing in the Little League World Series, and there's no record of him having such a gaudy stat line. If you're not familiar with pro baseball, .714 means he basically has a 71.4% of the time he has a hit when he comes up to bat. The most legendary hitters in the history of baseball are around the 400 mark. If you hit 400, you are pretty much an all-star, and you're pretty much one of the best batters in baseball. So for him to be almost double that, and it's not unbelievable for an athlete like Hulk Hogan to have done that in Little League. Some of these other guys have done stuff like that, have been dominant in Little League. There would be some record of this somewhere if Hogan hit 714 in Little League. It'd be something they brought up during the Little League World Series. It would be something that he brought up more often. Again, I left it out because it was a little bit similar to the Yankees and Reds thing, and I thought the Yankees and Reds was a better story. Now, last but not least on the best of rest, this is a story that made me want to do this list. That's Hulk Hogan wrestled Brock Lesnar after his return from UFC in 2012. Again, this is one kind of like maybe the Make-A-Wish, the John Belushi thing, where maybe Hogan is just mistaking his time frames. Maybe he's getting things convoluted. Hulk Hogan did wrestle Brock Lesnar in 2002 and 2003. As far as I could find, he never wrestled him after that. Now, very possible he's thinking about those early matches, and maybe he confused the fact that Brock Lesnar came from UFC that early. That's possible. On the other hand, with everything else that we've talked about today and the dozens of other things that he has out there, I can't really give the guy the benefit of the doubt. I would say it's most likely he's just forgetting the time frame or getting a time frame wrong. It happens. I've heard tons of other wrestlers talk about shows that they weren't on, but they're just mistaken. They might say something like, I wrestled so-and-so at Starrcade 87 when really they wrestled at Starrcade 91, or, stuff of that nature. Fortunately, Hogan doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. This did make me want to do this, that and the Benjamin Shelton stuff, which was part of that story too. But anyway, I digress. Now, before we get to our number one, if you think I put something too high, something too low, left one of Hulk Hogan's lies off the list that you think deserve to be on here, let me know in the comments. While you're there, smash the like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. With all that being said, our number one ridiculous lie of Hulk Hogan was almost the bassist for Metallica. And it may be possible that at some point he sent in a demo for this. There have been 2 times in Metallica's career that I know they were looking for a bassist. One was when Cliff Burton passed away. The second when Jason Newsted left the band. Both James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich from Metallica have come out and said there was no chance that Hulk Hogan was ever considered as a bassist for Metallica. He never auditioned for them. He never sent in a tape as much as they can remember, unless they just didn't see it. His story on this has changed from they offered him the deal and he turned it down, to he auditioned for it, to he sent in an audition. Again, this is one of those things where if this was the only thing that he told on here, I'd believe it. But with all the other stuff, and the fact that 2 members of Metallica, one of the most legendary bands that has had, I would say, 3 of the best bassists in heavy metal in their time frame. Cliff Burton was a beast. Jason Newsted is highly underrated. Robert Trujillo is amazing. Unfortunately, he gets lumped in with what people consider the bad Metallica albums, but he's a great bassist, even going back to his Suicidal Tendencies days. I highly doubt, as good a musician as Hogan was, which there are stories that he was a great musician and a great bassist back in the day, he was not on the level of Metallica. And if you think I'm wrong about that, go watch their Some Kind of Monster documentary, which it's not great, but get to the part where they audition bassists. I think you could even look that part up on YouTube and see some of the names that were basically told to kick rocks because they weren't good enough to be in Metallica. This is my favorite one. This is the one that makes me laugh the most. That's why it's my number one. I can't imagine that in any realm of reality this was a true fact. But anyway, I'd like to think that there's some alternate dimension out there where Hulk Hogan plays a bass line on Enter Sandman and Sandman is coming out to a Hulk Hogan played song. That would be ultra interesting. But like I said, I wanted to do these more in a lighthearted way. I'm not bashing him. I just kind of think it's funny. Let me know what your favorite Hulk Hogan lie is. It could be one of these ones that I brought up. It could be something totally different. He has way more. Trust me. Let me know down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another Heel Heat Top 10.